Morning, gents.
How you boys?
Good morning, everyone.
Just in case anyone was wondering why we've gone from episode 30 to 38 last week, we've ditched the whole seasons scenario. So the naming of the podcast will have the number in it, but rather than go to season 3, episode 1, we started on episode 38. So just some housekeeping there, in case you're wondering. Today, of course, episode 39.
I'm sure a lot of people were worried about that. Seriously losing sleep over it. But thanks for clarifying it.
I was just worried that people were going to think, man, I've missed 8 episodes somewhere along the line, and then try and find where they were hidden. But anyway, that's not the case.
So to make sense of it, every little clip in between counts as a number as well.
What do you think? I don't know.
No, I'm just asking, was that the whole planning around the whole episode numbering?
What do you mean? The bits that we take out, the full episodes?
Yeah.
No, they will be individual clips. Okay. So only the Friday podcast will count as a number.
Got it.
Done.
At least I'm clear.
Now that that's clear for the actual podcast members.
The big news in South Africa is that there's no news really. I suppose the big news is that you can buy alcohol again. Other than that, it hasn't really affected travel much, Brett, from what I can see.
The borders are still open. They were open before. I think some of the land borders were closed. They're still inefficient, will remain that way. But I don't think the issue is South African borders. The issue is our neighbouring countries' borders. So a lot of them are closed to us. So a lot of the airlines can't come through here. A lot of travel is banned to South Africa because of second strains. But that's worldwide now, so it's a common thing. So hopefully that disappears soon enough.
I think a slight improvement is the curfew's been relaxed a little bit. So it's now from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., which makes it a bit easier for our domestic and regional airlines.
It makes it a lot easier,
at least operate the early morning flights again.
But it still requires a whole whack of rescheduling again, because there were some people like yourself, Brett, that wanted to travel on an early flight that had to take a slightly later flight. Now they're going to want to go back on the early flight. So it's a bit of a rostering and scheduling nightmare.
Yeah, but at least it's sort of moving in the right direction. We didn't go further into any lockdowns or any of that nonsense. So.
Yeah, good news. Fly Safra is going to operate a twice weekly flight to Mauritius. Good news. That's obviously their first international flight.
When is that starting, though?
They haven't indicated a date. They say later this year.
I think when Mauritius...
Because they still close.
They still close, so as soon as they open up, then it will start. I figured, probably what happened there, I reckon Pravin Gordon's probably got a Mauritian holiday planned for March and figured out he's got no way of getting there. So he opened up the travel restrictions that the government have put in place there. Yeah. But it's good news for Safra, and I wonder if that's the start of a few more regional routes that come into effect in the near future, hopefully.
Funny we talk about that. There's a bit of a big bun fight with... these airlines that are still running. They're trying to capitalize or get back onto the routes that SAA and SA Express left behind. But our government and the Air Services Licensing Council is actually sort of trying to block a lot of these routes being taken up. I wonder if that's got to do with them being concerned about the competition for...
It's definitely to do with that. I mean, they want to keep those profitable routes for themselves when...
But for when?
Well,
I mean, when is?
I was going to talk about this a bit later, but obviously there is some SAA news. I mean, they say they may exit administration later this month, and a decision on an equity partner could be made by the end of March. The Department of Public Looting said, and so there should be a bit more info that shortly. They're expecting during the course of this month that the business rescue practitioners should be exiting the business, exiting a hell of a lot wealthier than what they started with. But that's it. I mean, it's a consistent bit of news that's exactly the same Month to month to month.
And end of March, we're going to have the same announcement. End of July, maybe they'll have an answer.
But
That's,
the licensing,
you know what it's
the
like.
licensing council holding those routes for SAA, there's no question about that.
I mean, even if they do start operating, what
are they going to operate?
How can they even?
Who's going to operate?
No, it's a lot of cuck, man. Honestly.
Yeah. There's still a lot of I see things there. You know, we can go on and on about the SAA saga. There were quite a few people upset with me last week, actually, for my little SAA
really?
joke at the end. Yeah, just want to reiterate that was not aimed at the pilots or cabin crew, anyone like that. It was aimed directly at the ANC government officials.
How could anyone have got that wrong?
I don't know, but you know, people are sensitive to it, so I understand.
Yeah, I think let's just clarify that when we make our digs at SAA, we're not referring to the pilots or cabin crew.
No.
If anything, we're on your side.
We're on your
feel
side.
your pain.
Yeah. It's the running the upper echelons and the top floor members there that we're having a go at.
Yeah, because they've successfully managed to destroy what was once a legacy airline. So, yeah.
And they put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy, so I've got no issue saying exactly what I think, which is what I'm going to say now as well about the whole SA Express thing, because they're in the news again.
Yeah.
The struggling state-owned airline is currently under liquidation, in case you never knew that. And the whole thing there is the purchase price now for SA is pegged exactly at 50 million rand. They do have a preferred bidder, a group known as Fly Sachs. No one knows who the hell they are or what their plans are. They're extremely secretive about it, and I think it's a load of nonsense. How they think they're going to compete in this environment with the likes of Safair, Airlink, is beyond me. So the Kakatso Tlakudi, I hope I got his name right. He mentioned there that hopefully the new airline with the new equity partner will be competitive in today's market. I mean, a statement like that is just evidence that he's got no clue.
What I find interesting is that the rest of the world is looking at consolidation, especially on the small airlines. So bringing them all together. Here we are throwing more cash at another possible.
They got no
competitor.
cash to throw, Brett. I mean, they
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I just wish it was open. I mean, we worked at the bloody place.
Yeah.
Tell us what's happening.
Exactly.
We've heard nothing from these guys for well over a year. We've got no time for these idiots.
You know what's infuriating is just give up on your hopes and dreams of having a government-owned disaster and stop stealing the taxpayers' money. Let the private guys that are running the airlines well do what they can to make successful airlines, and then as they grow, they can create jobs. But the thinking and is there any thinking
No,
behind
there's
these?
no thinking.
Quite honestly,
look.
the first portion of of our show today sounds like a comedy show. It really does.
But if you look at
Having a bit of a rant at it, but you know what? It's affected so many people,
Yeah.
people
No, for
close
sure.
to us, and you you try and be nice, and you don't want to get too involved in running people down, particularly individuals and that. But come on, man, be open about it, and stand up, say what the story is.
Exactly. I mean, I heard yesterday, Lufthansa originally got granted a 9 billion euro government grant, something we forgot to do.
Yeah.
They've only used 3 billion of that grant, and they say that if they can get things or keep things going as they are planned to, although they're losing so much money every day, they may not have to borrow any more money. I mean, isn't that what you want to hear from in a well-run airline? Imagine this crowd.
In any business that's received a bailout.
Yeah.
The best thing that they could ever do is say, guys, thanks very much. We don't need all of this. Take it back. We're good now. I don't think we'll ever hear that in South Africa.
Anyway.
Our friend in the UK, John Hull, had on his Aviation Africa podcast interviewed Sean Mendes, was at the head of Africa World Airlines. I thought it was a brilliant podcast because Sean comes off as a quite a character actually, and he's not really scared to say what he thinks. So if you want to pick up, things about his opinion on how African airlines are run, give that show a listen. I'll put it in the show notes. So very good. I quite enjoyed it, and a real honest take on Africa and the complexities around it, but also this idea that you can run before you can walk. And a big success there at Africa World was doing things slowly, effectively. It allowed them to continue. Now they're in a strong position now, and that was all because they were conservative and they ran things properly. They used local people, they used the right aircraft. They didn't go and expand. It wasn't this mad rush to go and buy A330 Neos. They operate ERJs, and that's led to the success of that business. But that is just not common in Africa, and it's good podcast. Give it a listen.
I'm impressed with John's podcasts. He comes up with some really good content, really good at people.
Good questions as well.
Yeah,
He's
really,
able to probe. That's if you want to support the aviation market there, listen to John's. He does good stuff for African aviation.
Well, in fact, I think, if you don't mind me speaking about it now, but we are looking at doing some collaboration with John, which we'll hopefully be able to speak more about next week.
Yeah, we're going to tie a few things up,
together.
but some exciting stuff coming there with John. So look forward to that. Kalula's got a sale on at the moment on their domestic routes. Low fares from 354 Rand. That includes a 20 kilo checked in bag and a 7 kilo handbag for you, Ryan.
Awesome.
All the way up to, it says 30th of November. So, yeah, it goes on for quite a while. In fact, I looked at some prices yesterday. I just chose Thursday next week. That's the 11th, and then a return on Sunday. So, Joburg, Cape Town. It was a 10 o'clock in the morning-ish departure for each of these. Lift, 1,235 Rand. Return, Kalula, 950. Fly Safair Airlink about the same, 1,500 Rand. Seme didn't have a flight on that day. So Kalula's pretty cheap, man.
Good pricing, really good.
Yeah.
But overall, good pricing with all of them.
With all of them, yeah. Even, look, for me, to be honest, I'm still going to buy the Safair ticket. Safair have somehow managed to create a brand that people associate with now. I don't know what it is. Marketing, how they've done it, but
I think there's also some history to it. For me, flying locally, in the past, it was always a Safair for me. I wouldn't consider any other. I know Airlink at that stage had a specific route, and yeah, it was for me. It's ingrained in me to use Safair.
Capture loyalty.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
Awesome. I mean,
and you know how they've done it, Ryan? Through not being late.
Yeah, on-time performance.
It's their on-time performance.
Yeah.
When you buy, time is so valuable now. When you buy a ticket, you want to know you've got the best opportunity of leaving on time.
Exactly.
So you think, I'd rather sacrifice a certain amount of cash to leave on time. And I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I remember long before this whole nonsense last year started. Trying to think of a better way to sugarcoat this word that we're not allowed to say.
Zuma.
Yeah, let's call it the Zuma. Long before all this Zuma started. I mean, my mom used to travel to Cape Town quite regularly.
Zulu, Oscar, Mark, Alpha.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's the Zuma
100%.
we were referring to.
Yeah, I don't know what other one you...
Oh, what?
Not the one that's trying to avoid jail time.
No, not that one.
Okay.
Oh, no, we wouldn't talk about that.
This is pronounced Zuma.
Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, I was like, my mom used to travel to Cape Town regularly with Safair, and she would always say, you need to stick in a CV to these guys. You have to go fly for them. That's how impressive they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Anyway,
in fact, though, the same goes branding-wise. Kalula and Airlink. I mean, we mentioned last week, second biggest airline in Africa. They're also great. So it doesn't actually matter who you buy a ticket with. Just buy a ticket and go and travel and support the carriers because they need your support right now.
Yeah.
Who else needs support right now is the South African Civil Aviation Authority. They're in a bad state of affairs. Poppy Cause is taking serious heat on social media, but I'm not going to go into it because I want to get my license back first before we before we dive into that one.
Good play.
But a lot of what we're reading there about the CIA, those little reports are similar to the reports we were reading about our previous employer and back in the day. So it's scary stuff there at the CIA. Their balance sheet of this last year, not fantastic. It's obvious. I mean, certain percentages come from the local carriers and all sorts. So it's pretty obvious they would be struggling. However, it's important that they remain, because the fall of them would be a major dagger in the side of South African
aviation. Shut everything
It
down.
would shut everything down. Yeah.
The sad thing is that you never quite know what's happening at the top, but the problem is everyone underneath just gets nailed. Part of the collateral damage. I mean, we have the guys here on a regular basis, and the
they're
guys
fantastic
are
guys.
flippin' brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rowan Mulder and Scholl.
Yeah, and they know what they're doing. They get it done, and they move on. And
there's good guys in that organization.
They are.
And,
it's like every other organization in this country. It's there's good people working for all these entities. It's just run by shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, Ryan, man.
Was it yourself?
Yeah. Guys, African news. Uganda Airlines taken delivery of an Airbus A330 Neo. What was that thing about running before you can walk? Anyway, let's see what happens there.
What do they want to use that? What routes do they say?
I don't know. I've got Dubai and China by the looks of it, and then that'll complement their fleet of 4 CRJ 900s. So they got a decent fleet, but let's see.
Airpiece have taken their first E2.
Yeah, how beautiful is that paint?
Oh man, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just chatting to the guys here because they were training, and I think everyone is excited about that. It's going to be a massive thing for them.
They've also announced the continuation of intercontinental flights. So I think they got Lagos Sharjah starting on the 5th, and which is tomorrow, and that'll be on a 777-200 ER twice weekly. And then, of course, they fly to Joburg as well.
Yeah.
This week as well, Ethiopian have just taken delivery of their 31st Q400, making them the largest operator of Q400s. That's quite impressive.
That's a huge operation, Ethiopian.
They are
growing. I wonder if they've got their eyes on Angola, TAG. I see they're in a real cash crisis. The state is looking to get rid of that cash burden. Qatar's been looking at them. I'm sure Ethiopian might be looking at them as a strategic base. That's what Ethiopian do. I mean, they go around, they set themselves up at these bases and taking over the African continent.
Airlines trying to pull clever moves. I see Kenya Airways have just been granted approval as well to convert their 787s into freighters until such time as they can be used again as passenger airplanes. It's not a full-on freighter conversion. They've got this sort of hybrid conversion that the Boeing has approved. So it's nice to see.
That's the talk of the town still, these conversions into freighters. The freighter market is what's keeping the aviation market afloat right now.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. More and more freighters coming up as well, worldwide.
One of the main stories, we said the main story this week, is a market I really want to get into. It's a market that interests me a hell of a lot. It's the Indian market, guys. We've trained a lot of Indian clients here at Simaero over the years, and a lot of those guys we've trained, guys and girls, we've become close friends with. Now, the support that we get out of India on the podcast really has humbled me over the past week. A huge amount of downloads coming from all the people in India listening to us on Ghana. Thank you so much. and please continue doing it. Give us a rating, and if you like it, just share it on. We get a huge amount of support there, and it's a market that really interests me. So I want to talk about it, even if we do a short segment on it each week. I'd like to dig a bit more into that industry there and try and find out what's going on.
You know that India's the third largest aviation market in the world.
It's massive.
Next to China and the USA.
It's massive.
Impressive.
Yeah, the Indian Aviation Authority controls the third largest airspace in the world as well. And I see that they've just rolled out ADS-B now.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. 9 million square kilometers.
Huge.
That is unbelievable.
And it's one of these markets that's just bubbling
expanding.
over and expanding so fast. I mean,
look, they got their challenges, there's no doubt about it.
Like everyone else,
Yeah.
they've got their challenges. And, our aim here is to sort of, today, let's give a bit of a brief overview on what's happening there. Maybe concentrate a bit on Indigo. I've got a bit of information on them. Another airline that just, to me, seems to have done everything right.
It's Indigo's India's biggest airline.
But they've got not just that right. They've got the right aeroplanes. They're the right size. They've expanded during this period, so a lot of their global competition is gone. So they're going to come into this market similar to the Ryanair theory. Ryanair are battling right now, but post Zuma, this it's going to be they're going to own such a much bigger portion of the market than what they once used to, because the competition's gone. So if you can hold on now and survive through this and come out the other side with the right aircraft, the right size, you're in a very, very good position going forward.
Well, the future forecast is that there's going to be 3 main airlines in India. Consolidation being the big thing now. Indigo first with 55% market share.
Jeez.
That is massive. The second one they're talking about is Tata Group. So basically, if they buy Air India, merge that with Vistara, and they're looking at probably 20 to 25% market share, which is also huge. And then the last one, SpiceJet. That's what the forecast is for India.
I see Indigo are actually boasting that they'll see 100% capacity by the end of this year.
I don't doubt it. They're the 7th largest airline in the world by fleet and domestic market share, and they took delivery of 44 aircraft in 2020. 24 of those were 320neos, and 20 of those were 321neos. Say it again, right aircraft, right size. That is the best aircraft to have, hands down. This whole Max story and Boeing, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later on, but you come out the other side of this with that many aircraft of neos. I mean, they're the biggest orderer. They've got more deliveries. It's going to be very exciting to watch these guys grow. And now, Ryan, is this the new China for pilots around the world too? There must be a lot of pilots looking at India now as possible employment options going forward.
It's fascinating. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, why hasn't there been such an employment drive towards India? Because a lot of our colleagues that have gone to the Middle East or China, if these guys start expanding, I wonder what the opportunities are there.
I think what India does well, if they're very pro using their own people rather than expats, which is right. They should do that. But with the growth, they are going to need foreign people coming in, and it opens up doors for a lot of people without work right now, a lot of good people without work right now, and because of what's happened, they can offer very favorable contracts that suit the airline. So I think they're in a good position. This growth now is a different story than it was a few years ago. A few years ago, they were worried about pilot numbers. You could have as many aircraft as you wanted, but if you didn't have pilots to fly it, you couldn't operate. Now it's a total different story.
That's exactly it. Come to think of it, I mean, pre-Zuma, the Middle East and China were the most attractive in terms of pilot salaries and contracts. Now that the world is probably going to end up on an even keel with that, India will hopefully be an option.
It will be an option.
It's guaranteed to be an option. There's no ways that it's not going to be. And world player and world class player as
Yeah.
well.
We're going to watch this market very, very closely and report on it as much as we can. It's a very, very interesting sector. From an airport perspective there, they've got a few busy airports, I must say. They've got, what did we say earlier? Was it the third busiest aviation market? Home to several major airports across the country, Delhi to Port Blair. Traffic across those airports has been rising very, very fast in the last decade. And when it comes to airport traffic, they got Delhi number one. 67.3 million passengers in the financial year 2019-20, slightly down from its peak in 2018 with 69.2 million. That makes Delhi the 17th busiest airport globally. Not bad for a state that's rising. Second place, Mumbai, 45.8 million passengers. That's huge. Mumbai also holds the title of the busiest single runway airport in the world. Single runway airport in the world. Clocking over 1,000 aircraft movements per day at its peak. That's incredible. And the Indian government plans to build a new airport in Mumbai that'll give the city two major airports, similar to what they have in New York and other busy areas around the world. And third busiest, Bangalore, 32.3 million passengers, slightly down from 2018, but huge. 3 new services to the US from Bangalore this last year. Massive.
It's insane. When you were talking about doing a bit of a piece on India as well, it reminded me of a book I read years ago, written by Arthur Whitlock, sort of autobiography about his early days of flying. He started learning how to fly in India, in Madras. And excellent book with very, very interesting stories of his early days and aviation career in India. It's worth the read. It's called Behind the Cockpit Door by Arthur Whitlock. Yeah.
We'll put it in the
Sounds
show
good.
notes.
Yeah,
Sounds
check
good.
it.
Yeah, as I said earlier, thank you so much to all our Indian supporters for supporting the show. It really does mean a lot to us. Made our numbers jump through the roof last week. So very, very proud of that, and definitely proud that you like our content we push out each week. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was having a look, I was just fascinated with the Tata Group and how these guys are so involved but so under the radar. It's unbelievable. There's Ratan Tata, who owns Tata Sons. They own industry like you cannot believe, virtually everything, from tea to airlines to everything. And I decided to do a little bit of reading because they're looking at buying Air India and that, and doing that merger. They are the foremost group to do it. But if you look at him, that group is sitting at the value of about $130 billion. And him as the owner of it, as the sole owner, and obviously their shareholders, that guy is not even a billionaire. He's not. He makes sure that his wealth is under $1 billion at all given times. Okay, that's still a crap load of money, but he does that. The rest of the profits go into charity, and everything goes out and goes back to the Indian people in some form or another. And I just found that unbelievable. It's just such a different mindset, and you can understand why he's considered one of the most beloved entrepreneurs on the planet. It's crazy. And he's now so active in the aviation market and getting more into it. So it's going to be very interesting.
Those are the people we need in the aviation market.
We do. She clearly knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but I think he might be part of one of the owners of the group because, remember back in the good old days, you and I both used to ride Harley Davidsons. And
the glory days.
The glory days. But you know how many Harleys are actually assembled in India?
Yeah.
as well?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could possibly be involved with that. We'll try and find out, actually. Yeah, good point.
Just thought about it now.
We spoke about last week that nonsense going on in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, that's true, guys. I wasn't, I don't want to report on it too much, but Hong Kong government implementing a new 14-day hotel quarantine plus a 7-day medical surveillance requirement for Hong Kong-based pilots and cabin crew. According to Cathay, this will see current passenger capacity, which is poor already, fall another 60%.
Jeez.
What are they doing?
It's ludicrous.
What are they doing? I don't know.
But surely they can see other countries around the world that's not required.
I I don't know. Isn't that just bringing them closer in line with what they're doing in China? I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
How's this Lufthansa, the longest flight in Lufthansa's history?
Yeah, what was that? I never picked up on too much of that news.
Yeah, they operated a A350-900 this week to the Falkland Islands, from Hamburg to the Falkland Islands. Yeah, 15 hours 36 minutes, their longest flight in history, to take a bunch of scientists down to that part of the world. It was just fascinating because when I saw that they were operating to, there was this weird code. I thought, I've never seen that before. I checked it out, and yeah, I had to actually go and look on the maps, find out where the Falkland Islands actually were. You know, it's not a place you hear of very often.
I think there was a war there once, and that was it.
It was like a year before I was born, so. Yeah.
But what I found interesting was Qantas is now in 2024 launching a flight from Perth to London. And I was just thinking...
Let's hope they've stopped their lockdown by then.
Probably not. But that's a serious distance to be pushing. That's unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, a lot of these, I mean, these new aircraft can do all sorts of wonderful things in terms of range and distance now. It's quite crazy.
Yeah. That might be done in a 321 XLR.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A little bit of insight into the operations at Boeing. You know, normally talk about some manufacturer stuff, but we spoke about the possible toxic culture and all sorts of stuff going on there at Boeing. They've just announced a further delay on the 777X flight control actuator issue. That's got to go back to Japan for re-engineering. They've sort of preempted this, Boeing. They foresee some of the regulators having an issue with the way that system works. So instead of waiting for them to not allow that, they've sent it off for a redesign. So that puts another dent in the 777X program.
So what, delivery 2023 I see?
24 probable. With this now, probably 2024. And EASA, they reckon even if the FAA approve that aircraft, or when the FAA approve that aircraft, they're going to have to do its own their own certification. They're not relying on the FAA. Obviously, they feel that the FAA's lost their credibility there with the 73 MAX, so EASA will do their own. Their own. It's going to be a
just
long
makes you
road.
wonder what is going on in Boeing.
Exactly. They've got issues on the 787 fleet, quality control issues. I think last year the issues with the shimmies there. Who knows? There's a lot going on there. The silver lining, surprisingly, is the Max. It's been recertified. Who would have thought that the Max would ever be labelled a bit of a silver lining at Boeing right now?
Even EASA certified it, so they've done their own testing of it.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah,
they have. Yeah.
With that whole 777X saga, I see it's even got Emirates rethinking their forward plans. They're going to probably change some of the orders for the 777X to the 787.
Yeah,
obviously
slightly smaller.
Yeah, but I think it's got them thinking, what if? So.
Yeah, they're having to make backup plans there.
From a business perspective, you have to.
Yeah.
You can see the trend here. That's the problem. I mean, if it's one issue, not a problem, but this is just ongoing.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. I mean, they also confirmed they're going to stop producing the 787s at their Everett base. So after March 2021, then they'll shift all the work across to North Charleston, South Carolina. There's a lot of stuff going on at Boeing. One wonders, obviously the limit was pushed on the Max. It needed to be a redesign, call it something else, but trying to keep it that 7.3, maybe that was the wrong move. Who knows? They also got an issue now because they can't deliver all these aircraft. So they've got a hell of a lot of undelivered jets, particularly the 787s. So a lot of those, obviously with the quality control issues in the manufacture process, they delayed the delivery of those jets. Boeing now holds 478 undelivered jets. That's according to some Cirium fleet data. These include 7 767s, 777s, 73 787s, and 391 73 Maxes. Though the Maxes, they'll probably be going to their respective owners shortly.
Can you imagine the background negotiations that are happening with the clients and Boeing? That must be a nightmare.
Yeah, it must be.
Oh.
It really must be. You take, you mentioned Emirates there. They're quite vocal about the manufacturers. I mean, they're not shy to talk about the, run the manufacturers down. So yeah, they're hedging their bets there, and they're going to need aircraft. Exactly. If they're planning to have their full fleet in the sky by the end of this year, which is still doubtful, but if that is the plan, they're going to need aircraft soon, and some of those 777s of theirs are a little bit tired.
Yeah,
they're not spring chickens, those 777s at Emirates.
Their Boeing fleet has kind of been their saving grace through this whole Zoomer period. I mean, they ditched the 380s for the most part, and those 777s have been working pretty hard. We just have to see how that all pans out.
I've got a productivity tip.
Shoot.
I've been using a calendar app called Woven for the last sort of 4 or 5 months. It's basically, like you see on our calendar or Google Calendar. It's basically a calendar. But I don't know about you, Ryan. When I stopped flying, one of the biggest things I had to deal with was the lack of a roster. Because your roster, Brett, dictated what you were going to do 30 days ahead.
Right.
You had your roster, and then you could plan your life around the roster. So a lot of guys I know are in this same boat now. You don't have this detailed design of your month, and it's quite easy to you get a bit anxious about how you're going to fit stuff in or what are you going to do. I like Jordan Peterson's way of explaining the benefit of planning and stuff. If you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he's basically a spokesperson for men around the world, I guess. And it's important. You've got to write things down. You've got to be able to look at your month or your week. And if you wouldn't pay someone, let's take a typical day. If you say, right, would you pay someone 50 Rand to have that day you've just had for you? And if that answer's no, then you better rethink what you're doing in the day.
Yeah.
You've got to have some sort of plan, whether that's, focusing on, obviously you've got your family, friends, career, educational goals, mental and physical goals, but you've got to fit those things in. And for me, the only way to do it is to have it done nicely in a calendar and actually see where I'm spending my time. This podcast takes a lot of time for us. We've got to fit it in early in the morning like we are today because we're working in the afternoon. But it makes a hell of a difference to me if I can see a week ahead. Okay, we can fit it in. We can, use this time or that time. So a good calendar application is well worth it. You don't have to pay huge amounts. I mean, the premium on Woven is relatively, I would say, in the sort of mid-range of what most subscriptions cost these days. But what's nice with that is you can schedule your Zoom meetings straight from there. It's very, very easy to do it. We use it a lot backwards and forwards between us.
Yeah.
So it's worked well for me. But a calendar application is key. I mean, my dad is always a big advocate of having a diary. He writes everything down in his diary. We're not going to be doing that, obviously, but having an electronic calendar that ties to all your devices, man, it makes your life easy.
I can certainly vouch for it. I mean, I've been using it as well, and it works well. I mean, some of these podcasts and books that you read about the habits of influential and successful people, one of those good habits they say they have is that they plan their weeks and months in advance. And being able to do that, you take a Sunday afternoon, look at your week ahead, plan your productivity, and it makes a huge difference. Like we always used to say in aviation, proper planning prevents per performance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give it a try. It works.
Obviously, I haven't been included in this woven app thing, but I'm going to go and have a look at it now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I like to keep things to myself.
Yeah, clearly
until
you
I
do.
release it
On
the
a podcast, yeah. But realistically, what that does as well, I've always had a monthly plan, effectively, because what that also allows you to do is just have a quick view, and you can very quickly see where you are allocating wasted stuff to your time, stuff that just makes you busy, makes you feel like you are running your ass off. But for what? Where is it? What is your time actually worth?
Well, what you're speaking about there is exactly why woven works particularly well for that reason, because you actually tag this morning, for example, I've got it down there. We are hosting episode, of a podcast, but it's tagged as podcast. So at the end of the month, it'll tell you you've spent X amount of time. It basically breaks down your data where you've spent time, family, podcast, work, flying, whatever it might be. And the lack of a roster, I tell you what, it adds a level of anxiety that you wouldn't understand, Brett,
sure.
because you've got this roster your whole life. You got this roster, so it's always there on your phone.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're doing tomorrow. You take that away, and suddenly it's like, well, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
You got to write stuff down, make your own roster, and get bloody busy doing something.
You do a budget with your money. Why are you not budgeting your time?
Well, that's the thing.
Everybody should be doing it.
It's so important, especially for guys like getting used to this whole new environment, transferring your skills or whatever. The importance of your work-life balance and everything, it's pivotal, and you need to be able to get that right. And having things organized like us certainly
You know
helps.
that feeling where you go, how am I going to fit everything in this week? Well, if you can see it, how you're going to fit it in on a piece of paper or on your electronic calendar, it takes that anxiety away.
Very cool.
Well worth it. Have a look. And as I say, there is a free version. I think you also get a bit of a 12 days or 20 days or something free on their premium sort of application. So check it out. I'll leave the details in the show notes. We weren't sponsored by them, just to reiterate, but
clearly we need to change the way
But
we
if
do
they are
things.
listening, hint, hint.
but well worth it, guys. Until next week.
One more thing.
Okay.
Just a quote from Ratan Tata, and I love this. He said, "I don't believe in taking right decisions. I take decisions and then make them right." And I just thought
that's powerful.
that was absolutely brilliant. Just make the decision, do something, and you're going to make it right. You're going to find a way.
Yeah.
100%.
Thanks, guys.
Great, guys.
That was
Until
awesome.
next week. Cheers for now.
Have a good one.